Who do you see on the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary?
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader.
Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid.
The conversation around the 2028 Democratic primary is already heating up, and two names keep coming up, Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They draw massive crowds and generate real excitement, but critics argue that energy alone doesn't guarantee long-term leadership or electoral success.
James Carville knew how to win, and he blamed the Democratic losses this November 2nd on stupid wokeness, to which AOC fired back that wokeness is a term almost exclusively used by older people these days. So that should tell you all you need to know. What? This is a term folks like you brought out very recently and had been proudly displaying at every march since. Just last year, The Guardian declared woke the word of our era. I guess they didn't get the memo from the Mean Girls Club.
A key point in this debate is identity. Critics say figures like Bernie Sanders and AOC aren't traditional Democrats, they identify more closely with democratic socialism. And for many voters, that distinction isn't fully understood yet, even though it carries major political implications.
We're missing an opportunity to remind voters how lame and clueless and hopelessly uncool they are, especially since those are the ones who actually vote. But okay, fine. What word would you like us to use for the plainly insane excesses of the left that are not liberalism, but something completely different? Because you can't have that word liberal from us and think it should cover things like canceling Lincoln and teaching third graders they're oppressors. That's all your new thing.
Bill Maher has taken direct aim at AOC, criticizing her approach as overly ideological and disconnected from everyday concerns. He doesn't hold back, arguing that her style of politics leans too heavily into cultural messaging rather than practical solutions.
Every month I see a new poll reporting how much Latinos despise the woke term Latinx. It's about as popular with them as a reboot of Speedy Gonzales. Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid.
The term woke becomes a major flashpoint. AOC dismisses it as outdated and overused, while Maher argues it represents a real shift in political culture, one that many voters see as extreme or out of touch. The clash isn't just about language, but about what it represents.
And more of them now than ever are identifying as Republican. So are Asian Americans, whose support for Democrats is down 16 points since the last election. A lot of that is because, in the name of achieving equity in schools, Democrats in deep blue cities have made it a mission to eliminate the advanced programs at which Asian kids excel. Asian parents said, okay, I wish all kids well, not a racist, but I need someone who acts like my lawyer. If you're a parent and wanted schools to reopen a lot sooner than they did after COVID shutdowns, or think maybe your kid is getting a bad education partly because it's nearly impossible to fire a lousy teacher, yeah, you're going to say, congratulations, teachers, you got yourself a good lawyer. The Democratic Party's always got your back, 100%. But I've noticed my kid is kind of an idiot.
Issues like gender identity, language evolution, and social policies are at the center of this divide. Critics say these ideas are being pushed too aggressively without broad public support, creating backlash among voters who feel uncomfortable or unheard.
On the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary.
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader. Okay? But this is the thing the Republican Party has to understand too. Both parties lost in the last election. Trump won, okay? And I don't know if that's going to transfer.
The Latinx debate is a perfect example. Introduced as an inclusive term, it faced strong rejection from many Latino voters. Yet when political leaders continue to defend it, critics argue it creates the impression that they're speaking over the very communities they claim to represent.
I get adjacent, and then Vance and Junior will fight it out for that crowd.
But AOC and Bernie, and who's at the top of the ticket?
They're going to lead right now.
Who's at the top of that ticket, Kevin? Because if it's not Bernie, he's going to be vice president and then wait his turn?
No, it would be. Bernie's been running each time. I'm just saying who's in the lead right now. I don't think that's how it ends up.
But big crowds don't necessarily mean who's the right candidate. You know, when I started
but it drives where the ideas are going to go. It's going to drive the money for a while.
It doesn't make them the winner.
It doesn't make them the winner. You'll have to wait till you'll get 2 years out, and then you'll start seeing these governors that start showing solutions. You also have to know, what is the issue going to be? Are we going to have a foreign policy issue? Are we going to have an economic issue? And who's been the best and leading in that? But right now, for the Democrats, who's going to lead for the next 2 years, the money is going to... AOC outraised everybody in the House.
And it's all small dump.
This growing frustration may be shifting political alignment. Some analysts argue that Latino and Asian voters are gradually moving away from Democrats, not because of ideology alone, but because they feel their real concerns, education, safety, and economic stability, aren't being prioritized.
AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want.
When it comes to elections, enthusiasm doesn't always translate into votes. Massive rallies, viral moments, and strong fundraising numbers can create the illusion of momentum, but history shows that winning requires much broader appeal.
Are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
Maher's broader argument is that the United States already operates as a hybrid system, combining social programs with capitalism. The concern, he says, is not about having safety nets, but about pushing policies that feel too extreme or risky to the average voter.
Police or military in the streets, either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods.
In the end, elections aren't won on ideology alone. They're won on trust, connection, and relatability. Leaders who fail to connect with everyday voters risk losing, no matter how loud the crowds or how strong the online support. Energy matters, but broad appeal decides everything.